Hello everyone, we are ready to get fired up here with Let's Play with upgrading from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. I hope you are all excited. A couple logistical things here before we get going too far. First off, the most important I think is you can definitely ask questions during the webinar. So you are all muted, so there won't be any yelling or cell phones over me, but there is a questions box in the GoToWebinar tool, so you'll have access to post questions there. I will try and keep my left eye on those as we go through the presentation, so if you have any questions or you want to tell me that, hey, I'm talking too loud or anything crazy like that, you can definitely provide that feedback in the questions section, and I will respond to those kind of as we go throughout the webinar. Also, this webinar will be recorded. I did remember to hit the record button. Good job, Shane. So with the recording, that will be available within 24 hours of this webinar. And so what will happen is once the webinar finishes, I will take the recording, I hit process on it, and then I will upload it to the web. You will be able to access that recording through the same link that you got into this webinar with today. So if you go back to that same registration link, you put in your email address, and it'll know that you already registered, and then from there it will give you access to see the recording once I've uploaded it. But that will be, like I said, give me 24 hours to get it up out there before I do that. So, cool. All right, well, that was all my logistical stuff, so let's dive in here real quick. Just as a reminder, my name is Shane Young. I was part of the SharePoint 911 team, actually as the owner of the SharePoint 911 team, back before we were acquired by Rackspace. So now we are all officially Rackers, and so we kind of brought that services and training capabilities we had to an already spectacular hosting arm that Rackspace had for SharePoint to kind of have a nice all-up little group. So that's us. I am a SharePoint Server MVP. I have been one of those for, I think I just had my 8th renewal. So that really just, it doesn't mean I'm smart. Coincidentally, I am good looking, but what it really means is that I'm a very vocal voice out in the community. I do a lot of things like book writing, speaking at conferences, and that type of stuff. There's my email address if you want to get a hold of me, or you can always tweet me if you're one of those people that likes to waste time on Twitter like the rest of us do. So all of that fun stuff is available, and there's a link to my blog. All right, so that's me. No one cares. So we're going to hop into upgrade, and actually there's a question out there already, but that question I'm going to hold that until we get to that section, but yes, I will answer that one. So we're going to hop in here to upgrade. So some things we need to know, and generally what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of go through, we're going to talk through some slides here, and then once we get through the slides, the second half will all be demo of me actually doing an upgrade for you and kind of walking you through how that works logistically. So all right, so things you need to understand about your 2013 or 2010 to 2013 upgrade. First off is that 2010 and 2013 cannot be installed on the same server. So in the previous editions, we could do in-place upgrades, or even way back in time, we could do a gradual or side-by-side upgrade. That is not the case anymore. In SharePoint 2013, you will have to do a fresh install of SharePoint 2013 on some new hardware. And then once you've done that, then we're going to take the databases, our content databases from our 2010 farm, and then we're going to attach those to the 2013 farm. If you're unfamiliar with how to install or configure a 2013 SharePoint farm, then I actually did a webinar on that yesterday that was recorded, and if you look out either at the list of webinars page that's on Rackspace, or if you look at my blog, you'll see a link to that along with all the supporting documentation so that you could build out your own farm. Yay me, pulling double duty this week, doing 2 webinars. Your SharePoint 2010 content has to be at RTM or later. The reason I put that is because to go from 2007 to 2010, you had to be at Service Pack 2 or later. So this time around, as long as you're at RTM, you'll be able to upgrade. Now, truth be told, being a good admin that I am, I would not fail to mention to you that you should be applying the service packs, or you should be at least at Service Pack 1 for your SharePoint 2010 farm today, right? There's no reason not to be at Service Pack 1. There's a bunch of cumulative updates after that. You know, I can make arguments for and against those. Those I consider optional. But getting this latest and greatest Service Pack is always very important. Also, as you start to look out there at that new topology, if you used Office web applications in your 2010 farm, those Office web applications in 2013 are now on their own farm. So Office web apps and SharePoint cannot be installed on the same server. So you might have to plan for some additional hardware. Generally speaking, when I think about upgrade, I think that most farms will probably end up with one additional server after the upgrade's done. You know, whether it's you need a new server to account for Office web apps, or you're taking advantage of, you know, new feature X or Y. I can just see that most SharePoint farms, I think, will probably grow by one server. Now, that's not to say if you today have everything on one box and it's running fine, you know, you might be fine again with one box because you've got plenty of excess capacity there. But, you know, my people that have got 3 and 4 and 5 server farms, you know, they've spread out the roles. They like to be able to scale and, you know, kind of have some isolation. I think you're going to see adding at least another server to your farm. Add managed paths manually before attaching databases. So in 2010, by default, you get the sites managed path, right? So you can create site collections either at the root of the web app or an underscore site, or sorry, or either at the /site/URL space. That sites is called a managed path. That is obviously over in SharePoint 2013. But if you were the type of company that created additional managed paths, so you have a managed path made for departments or customers or projects or who knows what crazy managed path you did, maybe for your favorite Star Wars character. If that's the case, then you'll need to pre-create those managed paths in SharePoint 2013 by hand before you upgrading your databases. If you don't, the upgrade won't fail. It's more the case that the upgrade will do really weird things with your URLs. So set those up ahead of time. When you're looking at your web app and you're like, hey, I've got 100 different site collections here across 10 different databases, where do I start? You always upgrade the database with a root site collection first, right? So the root site collection, the one that's represented by the / that site collection should be in the first content database that you do the database attach for. The reason for that is SharePoint always references that root site collection no matter where you're at in the web app. For some controls and things like that. So SharePoint will not behave correctly unless there's a root site collection in place. And then the last little point there, try to use the same URLs. If in 2010 you're using portal.contoso.com, in 2013 you really want to try and stick with portal.contoso.com. Technically speaking, you can attach a content database to an entirely new URL and it will work. The problem becomes is things like alerts. The URLs for alerts are wrong, and you know all the things you hard-coded in navigation are wrong, and oh, it looks like you had this document with hard-coded files. Those are all wrong, and you just end up with these cascading errors. Most of the time when I find people and they're changing their URL, they don't have a good reason. They're like, oh, well, the last one was intranet, so we're going to call this intranet 2. Why? I don't know, because it's the second intranet. That is not worth the pain and suffering of changing URLs. You know. If you've got to make the change, we can accommodate it, we can deal with it, no problem. But if you can avoid it, use the same URL. Question here, I'll go ahead and take that. I think it fits now. Do custom solutions, like a custom web part made for SharePoint 2010, upgrade without any errors to SharePoint 2013? So Lisa, your answer to your question there is usually yes. What you'll see is that most features and solutions that were created for SharePoint 2010 will just continue to work in SharePoint 2013. Now there are some caveats to that, right? And a lot of times those caveats are because you are using some type of functionality that either integrated at a little too deeply. So for example, a custom master page from 2010 could have been part of your solution. If that's the case, the branding aspects of SharePoint 2013 are completely different, so that is not going to work, right? Because the whole difference in the branding and UI model. But if you just made a web part that says Shane is awesome and, because they thought that was appropriate for the homepage of your intranet, then absolutely that'll work. So no problems there. So it depends, but you're saying that yours is a custom slideshow web part. I would guess, I mean, obviously I know nothing about it other than it's called the custom slideshow web part. I would say that you've probably got a good chance of it working. The nice thing is once you, if you use the webinar from yesterday to build a test farm and then use the webinar from today, it's pretty easy for you to test it out ahead of time and see what happens. So I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. Max asked the question, can you consume Office Web Apps 2013 with your SharePoint 2010 farm? Max, unfortunately the answer is no. So Office Web Apps in 2013 are a separate farm, and so that separate farm allows them to integrate with SharePoint 2013, Exchange 2013, or Link 2013, and it's all exposed through a new API called the WOPI or WOPI interface. One of the caveats of the Office Web Apps for SharePoint, though, is that your SharePoint 2013 web app has to be using claims authentication for Office Web Apps to work. I know that 2010 could do claims authentication, but unfortunately the Office Web Apps are just completely different this time around, so SharePoint 2010 cannot consume your 2013 Office Web Apps. Sorry about that. All right, so great questions so far. Definitely, guys, as we go through this webinar, feel free to put questions out there. It's a lot more interesting when I answer the question you want instead of you just listening to the things I wanted to talk about. So, all right, next slide. When it comes for upgrades, there's really only one valid method: the database attach. Right? Back in 2007, we had 3 methods: gradual, in place, and database attach. In 2010, we had 2 methods: upgrade and database attach. 2013, we just have database attach. So, like it says, makes for an easy slide because there is only one way to do upgrades this time around. So here are the different supported databases. Now, when I think about a database attach upgrade, I'm going to be real honest. I'm really thinking about content, right? If you've ever heard like one of my backup talks, when I think about backups, it's the same thing. I'm always thinking about content because content's the thing that decides whether or not I get fired, right? Once I get the CEO's spreadsheet back or his vacation photos back from his My Site, I'm not going to get in too much trouble. So when I do upgrade, I kind of have the same philosophy. As long as all my user data really works, things like I have to go manually set the secure store back up, that's work for me to do, but no one's going to be mad at me while I do that work except maybe my wife, who's like, why aren't you at home eating dinner? So anyway, I generally think of database attached for just content databases, but you can absolutely do your business data catalog database, your managed metadata, your performance point, your secure store, your user profile database, your search. If you've got project server, you can do project server databases, right? We can attach all of these different ones. The thing I would tell you is that if your managed metadata term store is empty in 2010, why are we database attach upgrading it at 2013? That's what I thought. No good reason. So you'll notice for a secure store, you will need the passphrase again. Hopefully you wrote that guy down or have a way to get it back or have a way to set it again. The user profile database, there's 3 databases. There's the sync, the profile, and the social. The profile and the social database will upgrade. The sync database does not, but that's okay because there's no user data in the sync database. It's just kind of like the logs and the processing and stuff that happens, holders there. So a new sync database will get created when you do that. And then for search, your index is not going to get upgraded. Your property database isn't going to get updated. You can upgrade that, the admin content database for search. Search is a radically different tool in SharePoint 2013. The topology is different. The infrastructure is different. It's that whole idea that FAST and SharePoint got together and had a search baby. So, I'm thinking with search, I'm going to encourage people to start over, right? Because there's a lot of new bells and whistles there, and I don't want them bringing over a bunch of old ways of doing things without thinking them through on the new platform. So, but it will upgrade. Just my opinion. Don't do it unless you got a really good reason. So quick question on that. So you lose all managed properties during upgrade. I don't know. So to be honest, right, full disclosure here, I have not upgraded search anything at this point. It's on my list of to-dos, and kind of heads down writing the 2013 800-page SharePoint admin book at the moment, and I do not have the search chapter, so I've not done that. But I would think that all your managed properties are in the admin database. I don't know, Max. Don't hold me to any of this, but I think that that's part of what's in the admin database, so you might be able to get it. But then again, if I think about it more, that's part of the index or the property store, which probably means you wouldn't get them. So I'm not positive. How about a fast upgrade? Same type of thing. We didn't really had, let's see, what did I have? I think I ended up with 3 customers who actually deployed fast for production. And none of them have actually said anything about upgrade yet, so I have not looked at how you would upgrade fast. I would be shocked if you can take any of the pieces of fast and do the upgrade. I'm going to bet that you're, it just goes back to search is so radically different this time that I don't know how they accounted for people who had fast in the last version. So sorry I'm not more help there. I just don't know the answer to either of those questions, so sorry. This is usually the part where Todd would jump in and mock me for not knowing the answers to a question, so I'm glad he's not here today. All right, so over here on the slides for authentication, claims is dominant. So that is another big change for us we have to kind of consider when we go start looking at upgrade. Is in SharePoint 2010, I'd say 80 or 90% of people used classic mode authentication, which was just good old NTLM, the same authentication we've been using since SharePoint 2003. But with that said, in SharePoint 2013, now the real version of authentication that we need to be using is claims authentication. So that will become the new default and standard. If you look at the UI, it's the only option in the UI. You have to use PowerShell to create a web app that doesn't do claims authentication. So when we start when you start doing the claim stuff, when you do your database attach, your database will still be classic mode, and so there will be a mismatch there. So when you do the database attach, you're going to have to either create your, you're going to have to migrate everything to claims. So there's still a lot of debate. We haven't made our minds up yet whether it's better to migrate your 2010 web app from classic to claims, or if it's better to migrate your or to do the upgrade, and then once it's upgraded, so do the upgrade as classic mode, and then once it's upgraded in 2013, go from classic to claims. Both are acceptable methods. I can give you pros and cons of each. I just don't know which one's going to be the norm, but I think a lot of people are going to have to go through that. Me personally, I'm currently leaning towards doing the upgrade from 2010 to 2013 as classic, and then once I've done the upgrade, using the 2013 tools to switch from classic to claims, because I don't want to go and mess with my 2010 farm is my thought process there. So, quick question, apologies. So you mentioned that you previously had a blog post on the farm install. What's the URL? It's just on the home page of my blog, so it's msmvps.com/ http msmvps.com/Shane, and then right there view my install SharePoint 2013 webinar, and so here's a link to the presentation and here's a link to the PowerPoint deck. So all right, so continuing along our upgrade story, no more pre-upgrade checks. So it used to be in 2007 we could run a tool, STSADM-0 pre-upgrade check, that did a good job of telling us, whether our 2007 farm was healthy or not, so it could do an upgrade. I can tell you that I loved that tool like it was my own sibling. When 2010 didn't have it out of the box, I was a little sad, but I thought they would reintroduce it later before we tried to upgrade to 2013. They have decided that they will not. So instead, the only option you have is this lovely little command called test SP content database, dash name, your content database, and then dash web app. So that command that we used, and I'll show you, I'll run that for you here in just a second when we start the demo. That command works on your 2010 or your 2013 farm, and it gives you an idea of missing features and dependencies and things like that. But I just don't get the same warm and fuzzy from it because it's not digging in there and really looking at, how much data do I have, how's it structured, where are my large lists, and that type of stuff. So that's kind of sad. Anyway, features and solutions. So as we mentioned earlier for Lisa, right? 2010 stuff mostly just works. In a perfect world, you did everything as a WSP, a solution package. You should be able to take that same solution package, grab it in your 2010 farm, and go dump it in your 2013 farm. Bammo, whammo, all that same functionality available. So I do have a handy dandy blog post there that will show you how to run a PowerShell script that will dump all the solutions out of your farm into a folder, and then another command that will look at that folder and then force all those solutions into your 2013 farm. So if you're interested in that. So another question here. Upgrading SharePoint 2007-2010 files that were still checked out caused the document library they were in not to upgrade. Is that an issue as well going from 2010 to 2013? I have never seen that issue. I mean, I remember hearing about it in the real early days of the upgrade. I think one of the later patches fixed that so that, upgrade could survive that and not fail on it. So I would be very surprised if that problem is still present. But to be honest, I haven't tested against it, so I don't know. Good question, though. Can tell you've got some upgrade scars. All right, so upgrading a database. So there are the two commands we're going to use. If you listen to one of my webinars from upgrading for 2007-2010, those are the same exact commands. Those are the same exact, this is the same slide. I just copied the slide from the old deck, so nothing has changed about it. So we're going to dive into that here in just a moment and actually look and do one of those. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? I think this slide, sorry for the flipping ahead there, I think that's a good point. Let's jump over here. Let's go play with upgrade. So real quick, lay of the land. My farm is a SharePoint 2013 farm, obviously. You can see it's in the Contoso domain, and I actually have a 4-server farm. So I have a dedicated domain controller, dedicated SQL server, dedicated SharePoint server, and then a dedicated Office web app server because it's required. And then I have a separate Windows 8 client here to kind of torment all the environment as I play with things. Okay? So the first step I'm actually going to do, I'm going to jump over to the SQL server. And on my SQL server, I have this claims for Todd back file. So that is a backup file that I created in my 2010 farm that had no relation to this farm whatsoever. So we're going to grab that and we're actually going to upgrade it to SharePoint 2013. So the first step is to restore it over here in SQL. So I am using Windows Server 2012, so the UI is probably a little different than you're used to. I have decided to embrace that and deal with that particular pain and suffering. So the sooner you do it, the sooner better off you're going to be, because it is weird working with Windows Server in this capacity. So I'm going to do Start, and then on my Start menu, I've got the SQL Server Management Studio. We are using SQL Server 2012. We're going to connect to the database engine. And then under databases here, I'm going to right click. And look at that nice built farm with no GUID names. Yay! I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say I want to restore database. Here I'm going to click the devices and then I'm going to click file and add here. Oh, you know what? And I need to get that file off my desktop. I can never get it off my desktop. Hang on. Sorry. Cut that, put it on my C drive, install, paste it right here by AdventureWorks. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so right click databases, restore database. From device, click the little ellipse, File, and Add. And then we're going to scroll up and find our install folder. In our install folder, we've got the claims for Todd back file. Click OK. Click OK. And so then here it's like, hey, I was originally named WSS content underscore claims. Do you want to keep that name? I do not. We're going to do Santa Claus. I don't know why, just because it's the holiday season. So check the box. Everything looks good, so we'll click OK. Boom, the database has been restored successfully. So there it is. So the next thing I'm going to do is over here on SharePoint, I'm logged in as SharePoint install. So that's the account I need to run my PowerShell as. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to security and then logins and then find my buddy SharePoint install. And under user mapping, I'm going to make sure that he has DB owner of the Santa Claus database. Right? If not, I'll get a bunch of weird upgrade errors, or not even weird errors, just errors of access denied. So either the account you're going to run the PowerShell we're about to do as needs to be SA for SQL, or you need to do this step. So, excuse me. So there's that. Okay, so now the database is over here in SQL Server. So now we'll go over here to SharePoint for a minute. Now in SharePoint, before the webinar this afternoon, I created a portal web app. So, or not, sorry, not portal, an upgrade web app, upgrade.contoso.com. Just using regular claims authentication and NTLM. And then if we go into application management and we click on manage content databases, change our web app to our friend Upgrade, you'll see that there is one database associated with it and there's currently no site collections in there. That's because when I created the web app I had to give it a database, so I always name it delete, so I know. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say remove this content database, click OK. So now my web app is empty, and to be a good little citizen I'm going to go over to my SQL server. I'm going to find that delete database. I'm going to right click on it and say delete, and then say OK here. Didn't have to do that, but I figured the DBA would appreciate me not leaving a bunch of cruft laying around. Looks like my delete is going to fail. Sometimes that happens after if you attach one or detach one and then try and jump straight over here. There's still connections and stuff that need to do their thing, so they still have some holding pieces held open. I don't care. Close existing connections. That's like the force delete option. Yay, no more bad database. Okay, switching back over to SharePoint. And so under SharePoint, or on the SharePoint server itself, I'm actually going to run the SharePoint 2013 management shell. So I've added it down here to my taskbar, and I've configured it so it always runs as administrator. I would recommend such things for you as well. So this will run. It pops open. A couple of changes I always make to my PowerShell windows, just FYI. I'm going to go into Properties here. I'm going to make sure that Quick Edit mode is set, so that way I can do marking, copying, and pasting pretty quick and easy. On the font front, I'm always going to change it to 10 by 18 because that's the biggest, and let's face it, we're all getting a little older, our eyesight's not as good, so bigger fonts doesn't hurt. And then finally for color, I'm going to set the screen text to this neon green because I'm a dork and it makes me feel cool. True story. Alright, the next thing I want you to know is that there's this awesome PowerShell command called StartTranscript. StartTranscript is going to take the entire output of this session, everything I type in, everything gets played on the screen, and write it to a text file. It makes for a nice log if you forget what you do, if you're in here troubleshooting, it's just a good thing to always have on. So in this example, it could be very helpful. So I always start that when I fire up a PowerShell window. Okay, so now we're going to do the command test sp content database. I hit tab complete there. And then I'm going to do -name, and this would be what? Santa Claus. So this is the database we want to upgrade. And then -web application, this is the web application that we're looking to upgrade to. So the idea here is that this command is going to interrogate that content database and say, hey, what is everything that you need to render successfully? And it's going to get a nice list back of things, and then it's going to ask that upgrade web app, hey, do you have all these things? Now, in an unexpected twist here, it actually looks like it has everything it wants. I was expecting it to come back with errors. Makes me a little nervous that something's not right. But we're going to be brave and soldier on. We're going to do mount SP content database dash name, and then Santa Claus again, and then dash web application http upgrade.contoso.com. And so this is going to, this should invoke the upgrade process, and we should see it start to count up, just like in SharePoint 2010, down to the 100th%. So there you go, it's off to the races. Just like SharePoint 2010, if you had two databases, you want to do them both at the same time, no problem. You could have two SharePoint 2013 management shells running side by side on the same server, and I could mount a second database over here. Now, on my VMs, that would bring everything to a grinding halt, but if your production hardware is beefy enough and strong enough, play with that. See if upgrading 2 at a time is faster for you than doing one after another. Hell, see if 4 at a time is faster than doing one after another. Doesn't hurt to test, right? So let's take that. We'll close this window down. Someone just chimed in. Will the upgrade, will this be available? Yes, so the recording for this will be available within 24 hours through the same link that you used to get in the webinar today. So yeah, don't feel like you have to take too copious of notes, because you'll have my voice recorded for years to come. And I know that that's the gift that keeps on giving, right? All right, so the other thing I wanted you to see real quick is if we go to upgrade migration and we do check upgrade status, you could also watch the upgrade process here if you'd wanted. So I meant to get over here while it was still running, so you would have said in process, but I was too slow. So this is pretty exciting. Our database upgraded. It took a minute. There were 0 errors and 0 warnings. Like I said, highly improbable. I'm kind of nervous about this. There's usually always an error. No errors makes me scared. But we're going to be brave. So what are we going to do? We're going to type in http upgrade, it helped if I spelled upgrade correctly, upgrade.contoso.com. This will start to bring up our web app. Obviously, you know, it's got to go and load everything, pull everything out of cache. So while that does, a couple things we'll notice. Over here on the C drive, C, program files, common files, Microsoft Shared, web server extensions, 15-logs. In here, we're going to see that there is an upgrade log file. So for every upgrade that you do, so every time you do a mount and it causes an upgrade to happen, there'll be an instance of a log file for that. If there had been any warnings or errors with the upgrade, then there would be a separate file for those errors right here beside it. So just being truthful with you, 99% of the time I never look at the actual upgrade log. I only look at the error one, because it has the full fidelity errors. I've got to really be trying to dig into something deep or just looking for something to put me to sleep. I'm going to go read the successful portion of the upgrade log. Womp, womp, womp. Access denied. All right. So we know how to fix that, right? We'll go back here to application management, and we will say change site collection administrators. And then we'll change the site collection to our buddy upgrade. I clicked it, I think. We'll wait patiently for a moment. There we go. So we'll take you can see that there's 2 site collections in that database. This site's Office Viewing Service cache, that was part of having the Office web apps in the SharePoint 2010. These site collections, you just need to delete them post-upgrade. They have no value. They're not reused in 2013. So just a little cleanup work you can do. All right, so click OK. Here you can see that it's like you don't have access. So I want to log in as SB install, so we'll give him access. Yay! We'll try this again. The other thing you could do if you're going to be doing a lot of upgrades, you can always take advantage of under Manage Web Apps. I could have went to user policy here, And then I could add a policy for SP install full control, or for my personal account that then gives that account full control of all the site collections in the web app. So if you're going to be doing lots of onesie twosie stuff, that might be easier than adding yourself to every site collection manually if you don't already have access. All right, we're over here. You can see the little spinny wheel still processing. While this runs, I'll show you something else, because that would be better than sitting here listening to me breathe. Under Application Management, if you click on Create Site Collection, I want you guys to notice something else that is new in SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, whatever version of SharePoint we're looking at. That is, we have the Select Experience version. So this is different. So in upgrading 2007-2010, we would often look at what we called visual upgrade, right? And the idea of visual upgrade was that you could have the GUI either appear in 2007 look and feel or 2010 look and feel. Well, that was fabtabulous and all, but it was a total hack. It was all runtime, fork in the road type of stuff, and I don't know, wasn't in love with it. So this time around, that is not the case. What you're going to see is that right now we have a SharePoint 2010 database that we upgraded to SharePoint 2013. So the schema of that content database named Santa Claus is SharePoint 2013. But the site collections inside of our database right now are SharePoint 2010. So if we go back over here, you can see this is still a SharePoint 2010 site collection. Site actions is still over here. If I was to go to something like site settings, this is still SharePoint 2010. It's not Band-Aid stuff. It is a 2010 site collection. So that's a different mentality that we need to take going forward here. And that's proven by the fact that over here in Central Admin, when I create a site collection, I can do it as 2010 or 2013. Okay, so we're not going to create one right now, but that's just to help solidify that point, I hope. So here I am. My site collection has been upgraded to 2010. You can see up at the top, experience all that SharePoint 15 has to offer. Start now or remind me later. Well, if we were to click on Start Now, you would see that there's a couple of different ways. Prepare for takeoff. They're so funny with their words this time. We'll start a few pre-flight checks. Really, who gets paid to write this stuff? I want their job. But so this is the big button that I could upgrade this site collection. I don't want to do that right now. The better option is kind of secretly over here on the right. Before you take the leap, try a demo upgrade to see how it will turn out. We can set it up in 1 to 2 days. So what you can do here is if you click try a demo upgrade, this was going to create as a separate site collection called a upgrade evaluation site collection. So the idea is that they're going to take the site collection that we're in right now, they're going to make a copy of it, and then they're going to take that copy of it and upgrade it from a SharePoint 2010 site collection to a SharePoint 2013 site collection, and then give us access so we can go and poke around and try it out. So, right, because that goes back to this whole idea that there's no lipstick on the pig this time. It's real. So we have to make a real copy of the 2010, and then we have to take that 2010 and do a real upgrade to 2013 to it, and that's what we're going to use to do evaluations or testing. So I'm going to click this button, create me an upgrade evaluation site collection. It says, hey, you've requested it. Within a day or two, we're going to do it. What? For the longest time, I just assumed this functionality was broken. Turns out, no, it really does just take a day or two. So the request has gotten sent off to a queue that says, hey, process this site collection next time you do it and make them their eval site collection. Well, I don't know about you, but I do not have the patience to wait a day or two. So what did I do? I went off to Central Admin to figure out how to make this thing happen now. So, and those of you that had fallen asleep, this is probably the most helpful thing I can tell you the whole time. If you go over here back to Central Admin and then go to Monitoring, and then go to Review Job Definitions, there is a timer job called Create Upgrade Evaluation Site Collection. So here you can see for upgrade, there's one per web app. So I'm going to click on the one for upgrade. And by default, it runs at 1 a.m. Well, I'm not waiting until 1 a.m. My VM won't even be on at 1 a.m., so it's not going to get ran. But look at that beautiful button. Mwah! Run now. So if I click on that button and say run now, I can now sit over here, and we're going to sit here and refresh a whole bunch. But we're actually going to see that a job is going to run here in a moment. There it is. And that job just created a copy of that site collection. So if we were to go to upgrade, let's see, /site/ oh, I forget what it's called. There it is. There's a link to it. root/eval, you can see that it just made the same one. Well, that's not very helpful. So what will happen now is that it took this site collection that it made the copy's done. Now it has queued up this copy site collection to be processed to be upgraded to 2013. And that job runs once a minute. So at 4:41-ish, so here in the next few seconds, we're going to see how the 4:41 jobs kick off. I'm feverishly hitting F5. What I want to happen is you just see that the job is actually going to get invoked. You know, and if I leave, there we go, upgrade site collection job is now firing off. So now if we go back over here, you're going to see that this site collection is going to be a little weirded out for a minute. It's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually, so even while it's being actively upgraded, I can be clicking around in it. I usually can get it to show us some wompy little screen with a bunch of messed up icons and stuff, because for a couple minutes here, it is pretty confused on what's going on. Now, of course, it'll just depend, does it decide to refresh before the actual job over here finishes? The world may never know. So it's still running. He's still waiting. We're still being patient. Maybe I should sing like a Christmas carol or something to you guys. Jingle bell. No, I would not do that to you. It is funny that my 3-year-old is taking to singing songs. Okay, so that says it's done. You need to try again. Oh, come on, SharePoint. Thanks for not singing. You're very welcome. There you go. So now you can see that it's been upgraded. Very important message at the top. Don't do work here. This is an evaluation copy of your site that will be deleted on 1/18/2013 at 4:40 p.m. Right? Don't come over here. This is an eval site collection. Yes, it's live. Yes, you can edit it. You can try it out. The idea is for you to figure out if 2013 works or not. What you cannot do is you cannot come over here and make a bunch of changes and be like, oh, okay, I got this all perfect. It works the way I want. Now I'm going to take this and make this my production site collection. That is not the point of this. This is so that you can test things out and kick the tires only. Okay? So make sure we're very clear about that. But now you can see, site actions over here, a little gear thing, site settings. You got to learn to re-navigate in 2013. It's all there. So that's how you're going to do your eval stuff. If we go back over to our friend SharePoint, the real site collection, my users are still doing stuff. It's still 2010. It hasn't been affected. The remind me later is going to remind us again in 30 days. By default, you can change that through some PowerShell commands if you wanted. You can add additional links and stuff. We're not going to get on all that, but it is possible. So then we want to go over here to site actions, site settings. Let's take a look at some other things. So one is you're going to see that there is still a link for visual upgrade. It doesn't work. It'll always be grayed out because there is no visual upgrade in 2013. But since it was present in 2010, they made it complete. Site collection health checks. So this is good for you. These are going to allow me to run 5 different rules that are going to process and tell me whether or not my site collection is good to be upgraded or not. And you can see that there's some library that it's confused on. It's an out-of-the-box feature. It's not really confused. No big deal. Site settings, and then of course site collection upgrade is how we actually upgrade the site collection. So the idea here is that administrators hopefully don't have to do all these upgrades. Hopefully we're going to teach our users how to do their own site collection upgrades when they're ready, right? Because they can create their own eval site collection. They can test it out when they're ready. Then come over here and say upgrade this site collection. Right, now you get the thing, hey, I'm ready, or let's hold off. Keep in mind, if they do this, this is forever. There is no undo. There is no magic going back. So they need to be smart about that. So I say I'm ready. Upgrades in progress. They get the little thing. Hey, please bear with us. If you experience any temporary glitches or delays, and if you sit here and refresh enough times, like I said, I've gotten it to just show me some spectacularly bad screens before. It all just depends. There we go. I feel better when I show you a really bad screen. But the good news is that it should be done any moment. It's still working, but it got through those errors, and now the link is gone because it is done. If you wanted to see the log, sites, oh, that is the wrong link. It's under site settings. We would go to site collection upgrade again and review site collection upgrade status. And then here is the log file if you wanted to dig in and actually read line by line what all happened. All right, we'll close that. So see, I got a couple questions over here. Can a developer deploy upgraded WSPs to the eval site collection? Yes, they absolutely may. Right, the idea is that site collection, you can do anything you want to that site collection, just know that it's the date set at the top, it's going to be deleted in 30 days by default. Also, hopefully your developers writing their upgraded solutions so that they can run the same in 2010 or 2013 using some of those upgrade tags. So potentially they could even deploy that solution to the production site collection ahead of time as well. And then there's another question, is there a way to prevent site collection administrators from creating eval sites? Oh, I honestly think there is. All right, this is Trevor's fault. He asked a hard question. So let's do this. Let's do get SP web application, http upgrade.contoso.com, and then we're going to do get-member. Right? And we're not teaching PowerShell today, but that is essentially going to show us all the properties and methods for that particular web app. And I believe, so here you can see things like the upgrade evaluation site retention days, if you want to add an upgrade maintenance link, reminder delay. I feel like that I saw in here a way to block those, but I'm not seeing, it's not where I thought. Maybe not. Okay, well, I guess it's not in here. I don't know. So if, Trevor, I would dig in here and look around. That seems like something they would have provided us the capability of doing. But I clearly am not finding at the moment if it is possible. So I guess that'll have to go into the bucket of questions I don't know the answer to. Man, that seems like something you'd want to be able to do. I'll look at that. Allow self-service upgrade evaluation. Right when I was about to give up. It's right there. So I bet if we... Right, this is where my quick edit comes in handy. So I'm going to highlight that, right click on it, and then we will say select, and then right click again to do a paste. And so right now it's set to true. So in theory, you would be able to set that to false, and then someone would not be able to do the upgrade. Great question. I like it. Another question, is the upgrade process as smooth as from 2007 to 2010? Have you tried it with a bigger DB like 200 gigs? I personally have not tried it with a larger DB. I can tell you though that I know the guy personally who owns all the upgrade stuff. He owned it from 2007 to 2010. He owned it from 2010 to 2013. He's the guy that spoke at TechEd, Shaun Livingston, or not TechEd, at SharePoint conference a couple months ago. And that is all he tried to do, is make upgrade more robust, smarter, easier to use, less chance of error, better recoverability. So anytime you ask me a question about is it going to be better this time around, I always go with yes. I I'd be shocked if it's not smoother, bigger, better. Right? 'Cause if you think about the infrastructure that he has to upgrade, that he's going to get the most pressure to get upgraded correctly, it's their internal stuff. And I mean, they've got databases that are way bigger than 200 gigs. So they understand that they have to solve scale issues. So I would be very surprised if you don't find it all goes much better this time around. All right, well, we're getting pretty close to the end here. Let's jump over to my slides again, take a look, see if anything else key I missed. Look at my cute little penguins. Current slides, we did that one. We talked about where the upgrade logs were. We talked about the fact that the upgrade affects just the database schema, that there is no more visual upgrade, that really everything has been pushed to the site collection admins. They're really trying to make it so that this whole upgrade thing can be self-service, unless you're like our one friend who's like, hey, I think it was Trevor, who's like, hey, how do I make it so they can't do any of their own testing? So then here, this is walking you through the site, the eval site collection process, the URL. Remember, it is expensive, and by expensive we mean it takes a lot of resources. That's why by default it happens at 1 a.m. But luckily I showed you for testing purposes how you could force it to run. And so this is the reminder of how to do all that. So we know we've learned that. You could also use upgrade SP site to upgrade a site collection using PowerShell. So if you wanted to script upgrading all the site collections in your farm, that's not the scenario that Microsoft wants. That's not what they're promoting. That's not what they're encouraging, but it is possible. I showed you the health rules, showed you where the logs were. Small site collections are processed by the app pool. So when you click upgrade, SharePoint decides, and there's a bunch of rules on how it decides whether the timer job does it, so a separate timer job spins off to do it, or if it's just done in the context of your app pool. So you could see, during your upgrade windows, a lot more of your app pool's running a lot more stuff than you would expect, so using more RAM and CPU. That's because people are doing upgrades and stuff. So upgrade does come with a whole list of throttling things that happen. So there's a lot of different things, like, the app pool can only do 5 site collections at a time. Site collections with less than 10 megs and 10 webs are done in the app pools. All the others are by timer jobs. So there's a lot of that stuff, and that is all set in PowerShell through the site upgrade throttle settings and the concurrent site upgrade session limits. So another question over here. Shane, what about blobs? Any news how the blobbing with AvePoint and such upgrades in 2013? So I think you're referring to like RBS, so having remote blob storage where you have the blobs not stored in the database but instead stored in the file system, and you have a third-party provider like AvePoint or StoragePoint kind of play middleman there. Those scenarios have been accounted for, but the thing I always remind people when they ask me those questions is you paid a lot of money to AvePoint or StoragePoint or whomever for that functionality. They need to give you their official supported story on how they're going to upgrade those instead of me giving you a generic story. They should have a process and a procedure, because you're going to have to figure out when you deploy the new RBS provider, what's the right way for hooking all that back up. There's a lot more to that question, but yes, those have all been addressed. I'm just not the guy to answer those. So I kind of don't know on that one. Haha. You're very welcome. All right. So these are the different PowerShell commandlets you might care about. We looked at the test and the mount, upgrade site to upgrade a site collection if you don't want to use the GUI, and request upgrade SP upgrade evaluation site. As you can probably guess, creates the upgrade site collection. There's a bunch of other ones. Use the upgrade, get command star, upgrade star. Have fun, dig in. Good times to be had. There's some additional resources out there. And that wraps that up. So just a couple reminders here. One of them, remember, there's my 2013 on how to install webinar. Also, if you're looking to kick the tires on SharePoint 2013, at rackspace.com/SharePoint, there's a link for a 45-day free trial. That is a SharePoint 2013 enterprise site collection with Office web apps and workflow, the whole 9 yards there. So if you really want to get in and play with some of the functionality without having to build it yourself, that is possible. Also, be sure to check out all the other webinars this week. So there's probably 5 more to go this week. They will all be recorded as well and available for you. So good times there. The recording for mine will be available within 24 hours through the same link that you used to register. So I think that sums up the upgrade stuff. So very cool. Thank you for attending. It looks like we got one more question over here that I'll answer real quick, but that concludes the upgrade stuff. So off-topic question. So in 2010, we were all told not to create too many distinct security groups by breaking inheritance. In 2013, we are now letting any user break permission inheritance with the share this functionality. Has something shared underneath the hood to make this all possible? No, generally speaking, at least the reason I told people not to do a lot of breaking inheritance, not to have too many different user principles and things like that. The main reason I would sell that story was because it was a pain in my butt to manage, right? Over the years, I have managed file shares and stuff where everyone used item level permission. Yeah, it was great for the person who set it up, but it sucked for everyone that tried to do it, and it really stunk for me when I had to do audits and stuff on the data. So that's the reason I was pitching that. In the previous version, I assume that's the reasoning behind that. So, yep, and then Max reminds me also, another reason that we would talk about that in 2007 and 2010 was if the ACL got to be too large, so the access control list for a particular object because you had too many item level permissions, if that got to be above 64K, what would happen was search would puke all over that. It couldn't index the item anymore. There was nothing you could do about it. That limitation is supposedly all gone now that we've moved to a claims-driven world. So that would be another reason that, yes, you could definitely go in that story. All right, another question. Oh, someone's saying, thank you, you're welcome. Can you download the video? You can't download it. You have to watch it online. There is no download option, I don't believe. So sorry about that. You're welcome. Merry Christmas to you as well, Lisa. Cool. Bunch of thankses and yes. So thank you, everyone. Have a happy holidays, and I will hopefully talk to you all soon. Thanks.